Today we're talking with Richard Klingeisen, Coordinator of Health Services at the Diocese of Green Bay and pastor at St. Mary's, Clark's Mills, and St. Michael Whitelaw. Reverend Klingeisen, you've worked in the clergy since 1972. How did this journey of faith begin for you? And what have your roles been since 1972?
Well, my role began really as a very young boy and attending a Catholic grade school. I was impressed by my pastor at that time, who was a Albertine priest wearing a white robe, and somehow I kind of thought maybe that was something I'd like to do with my life. And I recall when I was in perhaps the 9, 10 years of age group, I'd come home and with my siblings pretended to have a service, a Catholic service with my siblings around, and we would pray, and I would offer Mass in my own right. Anyway, I just felt a calling, and when I graduated from grade school, I went directly to a high school seminary at Salvatorian Seminary in St. Klingeisen, Wisconsin. Graduated from there in 1964, continued my education with the Diocese of Green Bay at that point to become a diocesan priest, and then was ordained to the priesthood on June the 10th, 1972. And subsequently, I have been in parish work for 9 years at that point. Then I was asked to do some further education, become a chaplain in a Catholic health facility. Worked in that capacity for 26 years in various leadership roles and chaplaincy visits to the patients, and work with staff members as well, doctors, nurses, etc. And then the last 9 years now, I've been back in parish work. And currently am the pastor of 2 country parishes and still involved with healthcare as the diocesan coordinator of health services for the Diocese of Green Bay.
Very good. Now, walk us through the typical day in the life of Richard Klingeisen. What does that entail?
Typically now, most of my focus is on the parish work that I do, and I do have a parish grade school connected with one of the parishes, so typically I would have a Catholic Mass in the morning. There are days then when I meet with the children, have lunch with them. In between, there is the preparation work for activities for the next day, whether it's another Catholic service, whether it's visiting a resident or from the parish at nursing homes or group homes, or going to the hospital to visit someone there perhaps. I'm also always available to answer phone calls that may come up in different preparations for baptism, for marriage, and preparing couples for both.
Very good. Now, a large part of your job includes the rather difficult matter of death and dying. You've said, and I quote, "We need to build a civilization of love in the midst of a culture of death." Please share with us your methods of dealing with death and dying with families of the terminally ill and the elderly, as well as the newly bereaved families. In other words, how do you handle a situation so difficult for most humans to handle, their own mortality or that of their loved ones?
I think one of the things that I've learned over the years as a chaplain is the importance of physical presence with not only the dying person, but their families and their friends. To be there as a servant of God, to be able to pray with the person who is struggling with life, to offer what we call the sacrament of the sick and last rites prayers of our Catholic tradition, is very supportive. And I've seen time and time again where a dying patient just seems to experience a complete inner peace when you have a chance to be with them and to pray with them.
Right.
And I think it brings some comfort to the family as well, knowing that that has happened. And I always encourage the family, I say, now just remember it's important to be here. You need to be talking with them all the time. Just sit by, hold their hand, let them know that you're here. That provides a comforting, supportive presence to them.
Right.
So if I were to identify two key areas with death and dying, one would be the importance of being physically present to your family member or a friend, if that's who it is that you're supporting, and the importance of prayer with them.
Okay.
Whether it's the sacraments of our Catholic tradition or the prayers of other traditions, both are very important.
Right.
Follow-up on that is once there is a death, to again be present and walk with the family through funeral arrangements, and those that I'm aware of, see in my services, I will check with them, see how they're doing, and always invite them to say, hey, if you need to come and have a chat with me, you're always welcome. Give me a phone call, or we'll get together, we'll chat, whatever kind of physical presence again and support that I can offer, I'm available to you.
That's very nice indeed. Now, in dealing with this, do you find that you encounter people who've lost a certain degree of faith? And do these people, and if so, do these people need to be reminded of the Lord and His master plan, as it were?
I would agree that, yes, you run into people of all various faith degree backgrounds in these challenging situations, and even sometimes I think in a non-confrontative or challenging situation of an accident, a death, a dying type of thing.
Sure.
You just want to really be present as a companion, walking with them, meeting them where they're at,
Yes.
and hopefully it brings back a sense of an awareness of as a clergy person, that your faith is important, my faith is important, I want to share it. Maybe they can just pick up on it.
Right, of course.
Rather than to become a strong, what should I say, an evangelizer at that time, that just doesn't seem to be the right time, unless they begin to raise a lot of questions and then maybe use it as an educational opportunity.
Okay, that's very profound. That's an interesting angle for sure. And now, on the other side of the very same coin, you are very involved in the local youth. Now, tell us about your various roles in terms of your schools, the church programs, events, and any other ways you connect with youngsters locally.
Since I do have a parish school, it gives me an opportunity to be very much in touch with them. Our school is a smaller country school. We have approximately 44 students from kindergarten through the 8th grade level. But my involvement is to have a daily religious service with them. Excuse me, a weekly service with them.
Right.
I do try to spend some additional social time with them, either on the playground or join them for lunch and share my time with different grade levels. And on the high school level, I'm present to help currently the juniors in high school and early senior year, prepare them for the sacrament of confirmation. So it gives me an opportunity to walk with them in their faith and their commitment to God. Also, of course, as a pastor, I work with the teachers as we prepare the younger children for first confession and then their first communions. And then occasionally a teacher will come up to me, or a student directly will say, hey, Father, I have a question. We're studying this in the Bible, or I have this question about the practice of the church. So it provides an opportunity for good communication, trying to answer their questions and kind of walk with them.
Sure.
My other involvement with youth actually is service work. I've been involved with our Diocese of Green Bay for 37 years now, and 35 of those years I have actually gone to Appalachia, eastern Kentucky, with a group of teenage youth to do service outreach.
Okay.
And it's been a nice commitment. I've heard some really good feedback from the youth. Many years later, sometimes some of them are married already, have a family. They said, you know, one of the greatest things I ever did was go with you down to Kentucky and help the poor people down there, working with the children and helping to repair houses.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Very positive thing.
Very positive. Now, I want to discuss your celebrated charity work. You are a longtime supporter and promoter of many causes. There are a few in particular I would like to ask about. First, tell me about Catholic schools, communities of faith, knowledge, and service.
Okay, I've been connected with the Catholic schools now for the last, initially when I became an ordained priest, for about 9 years, I served in 3 different parishes that had schools and involved with their education as well. And now the last 9 years again, 2 different schools, but the outreach to help these young people understand the importance of their faith, their relationship with God, and just try to walk with them and encourage them to develop a healthy, real understanding that friendship with God has a very positive impact in their life in terms of decisions they make about life, the things they choose to do or not to do, in a culture that seems to be losing a kind of a sense of direction in terms of some of the things that they get involved with today, with alcohol or drugs or pornography and those issues,
right?
Especially when you get a little bit older. I'm dealing mostly with high school or grade school kids, but we know that some of them have probably been experimenting with alcohol or maybe even some drugs, and
right.
Trying to keep them to understand that our faith, our call to live our faith lives, doesn't call us in that direction. It just leads to a lot of difficulties in life. So try to encourage them to make good decisions and ask themselves, what is the will of God for me today? What does God want me to do? As they understand the words of sacred scripture, as they understand a good relationship with God.
Okay, very good. Now, there is another organization. I shouldn't say another organization because I know Catholic schools. In fact, you know what? Maybe you could use this moment just a little aside to clear this up. You know, the logo for Catholic schools states very clearly below the words Catholic schools, communities of faith, knowledge, and service. Now, this can be a source of confusion for some, and I've heard this many times before, where they think that the entire name of this is the organization itself, but rather it's simply the promotion of Catholic schools in general. Correct?
That is correct.
Now,
that is correct.
Communities of faith, knowledge, and service. While I won't call it a slogan per se, it's kind of a summation of the mission of Catholic schools and the philosophy and so forth.
That is correct, and that what makes it so distinctive is that not only do Catholic schools want to meet the criteria of the state in terms of the knowledge that is imparted to the students, so that when they come out of a Catholic school, that they are at least at the level of anyone who's in a public school. And you'll note, if you follow through with the students as they perhaps get Catholic school students and public school students meet in the high school,
right.
Usually the Catholic school students do very well academically,
Of course.
in their knowledge base. They value some service outreach. Not that that isn't done in a public school setting either, but we have, for example, in our school, a monthly service project.
Right.
That gets them to do something, either this time to send Christmas cards to the veterans at a veterans home, or to go to a nursing home and sing some songs or play bingo with them or something.
Yes.
Every month they have an opportunity to get outside the classroom, do something in terms of service.
Right.
And of course, the other element, the faith element, we continue to work with them to realize the importance of prayer. Prayer is a part of their day, every day, in our Catholic tradition, and it might just be a morning prayer together in their classroom, or end of the day prayer before they go home. And of course, we do offer the opportunity for the Mass,
Right, of
our
course.
Eucharistic celebration of the Mass every week here in our school.
Now, for our listeners who might be looking to contribute to Catholic schools in general, when one contributes to this cause, of course, how is the money dispersed? In other words, does one contribute to a Catholic school or schools of their choice, or does one contribute to the overall cause of Catholic schools and then the money is dispersed as they see fit?
You can do it either way.
Okay.
If you choose, if you know a school, somebody can write a check directly to that school, and the money would be used for the expenses of running the school and the education provided to the students. Or the diocesan-wide, they have endowment plans that assist schools that may be struggling to make ends meet in terms of the amount of money to run the school.
Right.
So either way, it would,
Okay, very good. And for those interested, more information about this, of course, can be found on Reverend Klingeisen's official webpage, which is www.richardklingeisen.com. And I'll spell that for our listeners. That's RICHARDKLIN as in Nancy, GEIS as in Sierra, EN as in Nancy, .com. And you'll see that above the player that's currently playing this interview within the body of the press release. So there are some other charities listed there, other causes and organizations, which we're going to discuss now. So let's see here, the Cross Catholic Outreach. What is their mission and what is your involvement?
Okay, Cross Catholic Outreach is a particular organization that reaches out to the poor in other countries rather than focused in the United States itself. And one of the thoughts is that as members of our churches, that we don't become so caught up with maintenance only, like, we need to raise money to put a new roof on, or we need to paint the church.
Right.
Yes, that needs to be done, but ultimately, as an active church and it's called to mission, we're called to also be aware of the poor. I became aware of this organization a few years back, and our bishop and many bishops in our country endorsed this particular group.
Mm-hmm.
They are based in Florida as a contact office here in the United States.
Right.
But they do their work in Haiti, the Caribbean islands, Africa, and other countries as well.
Sure.
Trying to help the poor there.
Okay.
And I find it. I did some research. They've got a real high amount of their money is dedicated to programs, very low expense type of thing in terms of fundraising and management costs.
Sounds like a worthy cause indeed. And how
Yes.
about St. Gianna Mala Guild?
The St. John of Mola Guild is a rather interesting group. I am their chaplain. They are really a group of like doctors and nurses, some clergy people as well, deacons and priests. It could be others that are in healthcare, like therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists. The guild that I am chaplain for, the St. John of Mola Guild of Northeast Wisconsin, has as its purpose bringing together Catholic healthcare workers for support, for educational opportunities. And so our guild meets approximately 4 times a year to provide some kind of educational conference and common sharing.
Okay. If I may interrupt for a moment, how many times a year? The line broke up there for a moment.
4 times a year.
4 times a year. Okay. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yes. So, it's a good supportive group, and its focus, of course, is to ask ourselves, what does our Catholic faith tell us about good health care, and how do we share that, and how do we encourage one another? And by bringing in outstanding speakers from around the country, we can address some of that and provide some support and encouragement to the members of that guild.
Okay, very good. Now, a very important one, and that's not to lessen the importance of any of the prior organizations mentioned, but one of particular interest is, of course, Food for the Poor, with whom you're quite active. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that one?
Food for the Poor is also an organization that really focuses most of its attention on the poor in Haiti. Considered to be one of the poorest countries or areas in the world.
Yes.
And if you follow the weather patterns at all, you know that they run frequently into hurricane weather and stuff like that, destroying their homes and that.
Yep.
So we have here, again, my own commitment to them. I know some people that have actually traveled down there, witnessed personally what poverty is like, and then I've invited one of them to come and speak to our parishes, telling them what he's seen, and invite people to consider, again, the mission of our church, and that is to reach out to help the poor. So every other year I have somebody step back in and update us on what's going on there, and invite people to continue to consider, how do we stay involved? How do we not just think about ourselves, but think about the call to love our neighbor and to care for the poor in the world.
Excellent. Truly making a difference. It's what it's all about. Okay, and with the Christmas season upon us, do you have any words of wisdom or inspiration you'd like to share with your community at this time of year? Well, it might be something relevant to any time of year, but could also reach people beyond your community. In other words, is there anything that you'd like to impart?
Regarding Christmas, we do have an interesting conflict, I think, of how to celebrate it. There's the cultural practice, and it's not necessarily a bad practice, but, the stores are trying to sell their products. A lot of gifts are being bought and exchanged, and it's nice. It's an expression of concern and love for others.
Yes.
However, what we need to do, and this would be the central part of this, is we do need to think about how do we really express an awareness of the importance of the faith that we are celebrating, the birth of Jesus, and what that means, and that Jesus was looked upon as the Savior of the world, as the Prince of Peace, who would come to help address some major problems back to over 2,000 years ago. And even today, when we gather, if we can kind of think about Christmas, there's something about it. There's even I think people who are not real strong in their faith still want to try to get to a Christmas service because there's a certain peacefulness and enjoy in the Christmas songs and the Christmas celebration and in the awareness that there's something about this feast and about Jesus that we all look forward to in terms of living in a more peaceful world than we sometimes hear about today, the struggles out there, but that we look for that, and we look for an opportunity to share our lives together in this true spirit of unity and love for one another.
Very good. Often this time of year, I think to myself, how many people must go through the entire Christmas season without even giving a single thought to the true meaning behind Christmas. And it feels that each year that passes, and I've been around for quite some time, but increasingly so, it really makes me think about that. And I know that there are many people out there who not only do they not attend a service, but I think there are individuals all over the country and the world at that who go through the whole season, like I said, without giving a thought to the true meaning behind it. And so much of that ties into like you said, the commercialism of the day in terms of shopping and so forth, which has its benefits as well, like you said. And it is somewhat disheartening, though, to think about the true meaning taking sort of a back seat to a lot of the the more festive fantasy arrangements, if you will. Do you ever think that?
I do, but as my role as the pastor of the parish, I'm really planning and preparing and connecting with the services that I will be celebrating with my parishioners and a lot of extended family that I normally don't see here because they're living somewhere else and they're home to see mom and dad.
Right.
And it's just kind of nice to see that.
Of course.
But it keeps my focus then on what is Christmas really all about in terms of our relationship with Jesus, and we're celebrating His presence in our lives and in the world today. An extended spiritual birth connected to the first birth as a human person,
of course,
in our world.
So even if an individual doesn't pay a whole lot of mind to that specifically,
yes.
Are you saying that perhaps the feeling that creates, that Jesus creates, it permeates?
It may be a turning point for some of them, and yet that's not the main purpose of my comments, but that they would experience themselves a kind of a welcoming, kind of a peacefulness, a kind of just listening to the Christmas story as it's retold scripturally, and the Christmas church songs, in contrast to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and
right.
Grandma got run over by whatever
reindeer.
And then all that other goofy stuff out there. And I mean,
yeah.
that's not the Christmas.
No, it's
we
not.
We want to listen to the stories, and there's a message there. People are willing to just open their minds and hearts to it.
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
That's a nice note to end on. Well, it was a real true pleasure speaking with you here today, Reverend Klingeisen, and I wish you a Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And likewise.
All right. You're very welcome. And to you listeners out there, once again, please check out www.richardklingeisen.com. You'll see it right up there. And we look forward to thought-provoking and interesting programs in the near future.